Everything started when a massive Google Doc was dropped around mid-November in the Juke's Towers of Hell Discord server. The document spans for about 83 pages long, detailing the awful mismanagement situation of Juke's Towers of Hell itself and the staff. Now, I won't be going through every detail in the whole 83 pages, but I'll give a shortened version so you can get an understanding of what was going on behind doors. To keep it simple, the document exposes the owner of Juke's Towers of Hell, Jukala, and her action can be summarized as the following. Giving late responses when asked about details or requests for lobbies or characters, thus halting the completion of areas. Only prioritizing JTAW story aspects rather than the game as a whole. Providing very convoluted and vague details of the story which only made it harder for developers to build. Making decisions that conflicts with the rest of the team. Lack of communication when making major decisions causing confusion among the staff. And overall a major lack of communication with everyone. Questionable or bias in decision making like hiring staff members or the TOSA poll. One of the major concerns was when Zone 9's payout pool was around 2 million Robux to only one developer, while being double of Zone 8's, making it not plausible to cover the cost for many upcoming projects. Though the most concerning part was the fact that even though JTAL made around 4 to 5 million Robux after Ashen Tower Works, Yukala did not communicate to the devs about this, and this will be very important later. And finally, the VRChat staff meeting. Yukala hosted an important staff meeting on the topic of demotion of several staff members. Now, the absurd part here isn't the fact that there were two people invited who were not even a part of the JTOD staff team, or that most of the staff weren't even made aware of the existence of this meeting. It was that the whole thing took place in VRChat, not in Discord or voice calls. It's VRChat. Gamader, who was the co-owner then, took action himself and recorded the whole meeting, thus creating the masterpiece that is the 2-hour long video of the whole meeting. And for some reason, if you really want to watch it, I'll provide the link in the description. And the verdict is that it was terrible. False accusations were made against staff members who were going to be demoted without them being in the meeting themselves. And decisions were influenced by it and by the other individuals who were personally close to Jukala, which is bad. Simply imagine this. Your boss at a company organized a meeting about your demotion without you even knowing, making false claims about your character while giving baby talk and cuddling with others. It is pure insanity. You can read the rest of the document yourself in the description also, but do keep in mind that some of the information might be slightly outdated now due to current events. In the end, this situation resulted in many staff members stepping down from the game. The thing about this is they were already going to be demoted by Jukala anyways. Leaving the development of the game in a critical state, the future of the game is looking quite bleak. In response, Jukala announced that they will be restructuring the dev team and crafting their own response to the whole document. After some time had passed, a few people did rejoin the team. The game got a new set of curators and a Christmas event was released. Maybe things aren't looking too bad for JTON now. Surely, right? On January 15, 2025, Jukala posted a 12-page document responding and addressing some misconception in the previous document. Once again, I'll sum it up to the main points. Nothing new were really brought up inside the doc regarding the situation around Silence Abyss or Ashen Tower's name or Purgado or Zone 9B, and that they occurred due to miscommunications or the bias in hiring staff members, which is something we already knew from the previous document. Yukala only prioritized the story aspect of Jtal due to the fact that the rest of the team didn't care about the story, and her desire or motivation to create a story was stronger than making a platformer game. For a platformer game, Yukala tackled the issue of promoting Zequity by saying that she wanted to promote Zequity, but the team disagreed due to the lack of application progress, so Yukala promoted Zequity anyways. Yukala mentioned the point that they were biased towards their friends, and her response is that they understood her the best. About the mismanagement issues of their behavior of late or vague responses to questions was due to ADHD, indecisiveness, and tendency to forget. Thankfully, though, she does seem to be serious about the situation overall. Yukala acknowledges the false accusation during the VRChat meeting was only rumors, even though in the meeting itself the rumors were treated as if factual. Here we have the most important part, the VRChat meeting. The whole reason behind this decision was because it was the most comfortable place to host a meeting, even though the conversations that occurred were about staff demotions. The reason why the staff members discussed for demotion wasn't invited was because it did not feel right to invite them. Hey, at least in the end, she promised to improve and learn from her mistakes, right? After the response was dropped, let's just say it was not very well received, understandably. Most of the next text messages took part in another Discord channel called JTalk Group Hug that was linked in the end of the first mismanagement document for people to discuss about the current situation. In here, we learned how much money Jukala was making from the game whilst having little contribution to the game itself other than the making of the story aspect. At the same time, the developers who were actively making the game was getting paid very little. One thing to keep in mind here is that Jukala does not have a real job, and her source of income is JTalk itself. Jukala said that the reason why she can't get a job is because there aren't any job that pays decently and doesn't require phone calls. Which is absurd since there exists plenty of jobs that don't require phone calls. Her other reason is that the fear of being discriminated against transphobe in the workplace, which is understandable, but it's also worth taking in mind that not everyone is a transphobe and the other developers themselves were also in bad situations and were working on the game full-time while receiving minimal pay compared to Jukala. Another reason why Jukala can't get a job is that they don't have any means of transportation and can't get a driver's license because of fear from anxiety and ADHD. Alright, here's the worst news that was dropped. Back in 2021, it turns out Jukala made around 28.5 million Robux, and the split for her was 70%, which is around 100,000 crisp USD. Keep in mind though that this is only in 2021, and this went on for years until November 2024. And the best part is that this was unknown to everyone besides Juke until now. So yeah, what I mentioned in part 1, the Zone 9 2 million Robux payout is the largest payout ever seen, which is less than what Juke was raking in monthly. Why does this happen, you might be asking? It was because she didn't think that this was something wrong to do, taking 70% of the revenue until people really drilled into her head. She then realizes. And her response? And her response is that she can improve. Jugala then proceeds to dodge the next important questions fired at her, like how she is going to repay everyone for their hard work, while only giving answers such as clarifying how much she only took, or how the pay split is now 50%, or now it's less than 50%. This makes Jucala's decision back in November to demote several developers very questionable, since Jucala's work of writing story and making 100% of the decisions resulted in a 70% paycheck, while the latter was labeled as greedy for asking for a fairer share and treatment. Jucala made around $50,000 per year, while the co-owner Gamater only received in 5 years $4,000 ever. It's just outrageous. Now some of you might be wondering, where did all of that money go then? Well, the answer is no idea. Jugala went radio silent after this, and for good reason too. How in the hell are you supposed to respond to this? Well, because there is simply no way you can. There is no way you can justify taking 70% of the game's revenue without telling anyone about it. Though that does not justify leaving everyone's question in the dark. After this, Jukala, well, you guessed it, hop into VRChat. So yeah, for years while everyone else worked full-time in the game, Jukala was in VRChat all day, making more money than everyone else. And so for the next few days, absolutely nothing happened. It was pure silence from Jukala's side. Although, on the other side, a large number of tower creators requested to have their towers removed from JTAL until Jukala steps down from her position. This includes Tower of Cruel Punishment, Citadel of Twist and Weirdness, Tower of Icy Blizzards, Tower of Terrifying Beauty, and many more. At the same time, some tower creators were making comical edits to their own towers, giving out the messages which relates to the 28.5 million situation. On January 20th, 2025, Jukala's message was leaked saying that she would not be stepping down as the owner of the game and will take down every single re-uploaded version of the game. This caused such a massive chaos in the JTAR Discord server, even to the point where many individuals tried to be funny and started spamming porn and gore everywhere, which caused a full lockdown of the server, of every single channel, and leaving only people with permission to speak. While that was happening, the current developers of the game was also participating in the tomfoolery by making several updates to the game, which includes the new challenges, which contains a very conspicuous message, I think you can already tell. A whole new event round which turned out to be the Stronghold, featuring 5 mini towers, and a new badge for the event. Next up, Jukala mentioned that they would only consider stepping down if they got a job. but then disclose that they will not be pursuing a job, which inherently means that she won't be stepping down. Since it was evident that Juke refuses to step down, a bunch of people actually tried to buy J-Talk off of Juke's hand, without taking in mind of the heavily underpaid and overworked developers. And out of everyone, the owner of Fish and Franco made an offer to buy off the game, making a deal that is helpful to the both of them. Now, this obviously is a terrible idea, as it would only profit Jukala even more, but to none of the devs that actually worked on the game. Also, leaving the game to the hand of a complete outsider would not be very idealistic. This was about the worst point J-Talk could ever be at right now, and things were not looking well whether or not any decision. This was about the worst point J-Talk could ever be at, and things weren't looking well whether or not any decisions will be made at all. On January 21st, 2025, the best news the game could ever receive happened. Jukala stepped down from the owner of J-Talk, though it was bought off, really, and thus ending the 6 years long reign of Jukala and welcoming the new owner of the game, being Dark and Gamma. That's right, the game does not have a singular owner anymore, and instead a joint ownership shared between Dark and Gamma. Yes, she has made very terrible mistakes, but that does not make it right to harass her over it, and it doesn't help anyone at all. Jukala at the end made the right decision here, and has now stepped away from the community as a whole. Now that the game is under new management, many changes have already been made, like Tower's removal requests were resigned. The server lockdown is now over. Towers submitted during polls will no longer be polled, reducing work for curators to instead focus on voting on polls, and many more to come. Most importantly, the game will no longer be named Juke's Towers of Hell. Whether it will be Dark's Towers of Hell or Gamma's Towers of Hell or something else entirely is still being decided. This will be the last time the name Juke's Towers of Hell will ever be displayed ever on the game page. It is the end of the Juke's Towers of Hell era. If you found any parts of the video that were either wrong or missing some context, please do feel free to leave a comment down below. Ah.